This presentation, titled Sign of the Times, is intended to provide information and education to parents, guardians, staff, and students across Waukesha schools about the program Waukesha One. The first stop on our journey today is our expectations at school. In this, we focus on the daily expectations of students, day-to-day use of the devices, and the general rules while at school. The first expectation we have of our students is that the device comes to school charged and is present each day. The device is an important part of our learning environment, and as a result of that, a student that comes to class without their device or without having it fully charged is similar to a student who came to class without their materials, such as a writing utensil or a textbook, prior to having devices. It's very important that students come to school with these tools each day. Additionally, it's important for our parents to understand that if you're interested in purchasing an additional charger, you can certainly do so. One charger and one charging cable will be provided to each family. Any additional charges can be purchased within your school or at a local store if you're interested in purchasing one. Of course, these fees will be incurred by the family. The next guideline is our appropriate use guidelines. It's important to know that these guidelines will be enforced and should be followed closely. Each student and parent or guardian will sign the appropriate use guidelines when the iPad is distributed. You should be aware of what's on that form. If you're interested, you can request an additional copy of the iPad appropriate use guidelines. You may also wish to talk further with your school administrators about these guidelines. We want parents and students to understand that these devices belong to the School District of Waukesha. We encourage you to use them and to make them a part of your son's or daughter's learning experience. It's important to note that these devices can be monitored and collected while at school. It's also important to understand that this means that they can be monitored remotely, specifically allowing SDW staff to monitor things like internet search history, app installations and history of app installations, and determining if the iPad has been charged recently, as well as any other critical information that may be necessary. It is critical to note, though, that the camera on these devices cannot be accessed or monitored by the district staff. These devices can be searched at any time. They can be collected and maintained by district staff as They can be collected and maintained by district staff members as staff members see fit. The next topic is apps that are available for school. Your son or daughter has been issued what we call a set of core apps through the self-service app on the iPad. These are apps that are provided in order for all staff and students to have a common base of apps which they can plan their learning activities. At times, additional apps that the teacher may wish to use or may recommend to students may be suggested by SDW staff for use in the classroom. However, these additional apps should not be required, and parents and guardians should have sufficient time to review the app prior to installing it on the device. Additionally, any additional app recommendations should have no additional cost associated with them. To reiterate, students will already have the apps required for school available to them on their device. That pretty much covers our basic expectations while at school. It's important for you to know that these tools are intended for academic purposes. Anything outside of the use of these tools for academic purposes is a violation of the iPad use guidelines. Let's quickly talk about customization of the iPad. All of the devices provided to students will be issued to them over the course of several years. Students will maintain their devices from year to year. As a result, students are encouraged to take excellent care of these devices and to keep them consistently in good working order. One of the ways we do this is to make sure that the case issued with your iPad is consistently on the iPad. The cases that are provided are very protective, and they're certainly sturdy enough to stand up to most of the day-to-day use. However, Some families will determine that their child needs something a little bit more protective. If you elect to purchase a case for your child that is not the standard issue, you will incur any additional costs as a result of that case purchase. Another question that's occasionally asked is whether the on-screen keyboarding that is built into the iPad is sufficient for academic uses. After a long study watching students inside and outside of our organization to utilize on-screen keyboards, we believe the on-screen keyboard is in fact sufficient for academic purposes. If families wish to explore other keyboarding options or to purchase a case with a built-in keyboard, it is certainly your prerogative to do so. Again, any costs incurred by the family are your own responsibility. Our next destination is damage and responsibility. As a district, we certainly realize that from time to time, bad things can happen when using mobile devices. This is an overview of the reporting and repair process, as well as the families' and students' responsibility in that process. It's important to understand that students should return damaged devices to school no matter the severity of the damage. It's important to report this damage to a staff member and let them make a decision as to how it should be repaired. Each school has an assigned staff member and process for reporting and repairing iPads. You should ask your local teachers or administrators who that staff member is in your building. In Waukesha, we use a return to learning cycle in which students can return the original device to school, quickly and easily borrow a loaner device, and return to the learning environment as quickly as possible. Then, when the damaged device is repaired and returned to school, the student will swap the loaner for their original. In this way, we try to avoid downtime for our learners. This is particularly important as more and more learning opportunities become dependent upon the use of the iPad in our classrooms. It's important to remember that backing up critical information is the responsibility of our parents and students. We utilize two primary backup resources: iCloud for the iPad configuration and Google Drive for important projects and content on the iPad. It's the responsibility of the student to make sure their work is regularly backed up so that in the event that damage happens, the student is not without their most critical educational work. We encourage you to back up often. If you are unaware of how to back up data, contact the teachers or the administrators in your building for additional support, or visit the Waukesha website for tutorials. Of course, there is a financial side to damage that we have to discuss. Device damage will incur charges to the student and the family. We have developed a graduated fee schedule that identifies initial damage incidents and gives them a smaller damage repair fee, yet holds students financially responsible when they've had multiple breaks. For a first offense in which a repair must be done to the iPad, the family will be assessed a $30 fee. For the second offense, the family will be assessed a $60 fee. Each additional offense over the life of the loan device will incur a $100 repair fee. The fees will be assessed to the family through the same process as school fees are presently assessed, and similarly, payment can be made in the same way that school fees can be paid. In the event that a student has repeated breaks, the district reserves the right to assess additional fees or restrict student access to the device. It's also important to note that the device fees and repair cycle utilized in the district should be the only repair cycle utilized by families. Please do not take the device to independent outside carriers and pay for them to fix the device. While discussing this fee schedule, we must also talk about the difference between theft and loss of a device. An iPad that is stolen with the student or family making a reasonable attempt to secure that device is covered by insurance at no cost to the student or their family. In the event that the device is stolen, families must file a police report, and the family must provide a copy of that police report to the school administrator at your building. The School District of Waukesha will not file this report on behalf of families. It is the responsibility of the student and or the family to be certain to acquire this police report and to make sure it's on file with the district. Without a police report on file, the device is considered lost by the district. This police report will be the documentation the district needs to file an insurance claim. Be aware that falsified police reports for stolen goods is illegal and can also lead to insurance fraud. If you aren't certain if the device was considered stolen or lost, please contact an administrator at your building and they will assist you in the process. It's important to note that if a device is stolen, one of the first steps that should be taken is to notify somebody at the school. We can use some of our background monitoring software to possibly track the device. However, time is precious, and the sooner somebody is notified of theft or loss, the sooner we can begin tracing it and the more likely it is to be located. Of course, loss of a device is not covered by insurance. If a device is lost and a police report cannot be filed, as a result, the family will be assessed the full replacement cost of the device. In the event that a device is lost, please notify your building administrator in a timely fashion. Finally, let's talk about expectations that are at the heart of Waukesha One for your family. Your son or daughter has the privilege of bringing these devices home in order to assist with their academic work. This is truly the new face of learning in the 21st century, and it's going to prepare our young people for a highly connected, collaborative, and creative future of work where students learn to be more productive with these powerful tools. We certainly realize that as these devices come home, it can introduce a new set of responsibilities that could take place at home. This section is intended to provide parents with some ideas of what can be done to keep an eye on the device and to maintain some control as to whether the device is used and what it is used for. Some families may be interested in monitoring internet use at home. While district staff will not be available to assist with setting up or monitoring internet traffic at your home, we do have some solutions that may be valuable to you. If you have an internet router at home, many of them come with monitoring software and options built in. We'd encourage you to utilize those tools. Another option is called OpenDNS. It allows you to set up internet filters on home networks. Services such as OpenDNS are free to use, but any system that you have which will allow you to monitor your students' use at home and an internet history would be valuable. We also encourage parents to restrict the device as you see fit. There are many restrictions that are possible and are already built into the iPad. For instance, restrictions can be used to restrict specific internet sites, to restrict app or media installation, to remove inappropriate apps, as well as a wide variety of other options. If you choose to set parental controls or restrictions on the iPad, we encourage you to talk to your son or daughter about the restrictions you've set, as those restrictions may cause an inability to use certain features of the iPad which might be beneficial at school. Again, this is certainly your right and privilege as a parent, but the primary user of the iPad should at least be aware that these restrictions are in place. When setting restrictions, you will need to choose a password to lock and unlock the restrictions. In choosing that password, please understand that it's critical you do not forget this information. If restrictions have been set on the iPad and the password's forgotten, it can be difficult to unlock the device. While your Apple ID does maintain history of the apps and media, any work which your son or daughter has on the device for school purposes could be lost if you forget the password. Again, we also encourage students to regularly back up their work to avoid this loss. Another topic, device checks. We are all increasingly aware of the amount of screen time that our young people are spending on devices. And the introduction of the iPad into our learning environments will contribute to the amount of time that students are interacting with devices and are online. While we are aware of this, we also understand that societal forces and changes in the world of work require our young people to learn to use these devices for productive, academic, and professional pursuits. As educators, we still greatly value face-to-face communication and interaction. We believe it's a critical component to prepare our young people to be very happy, healthy, and successful today and in their life ahead. At school, students will have plenty of opportunity to interact and communicate with others, despite the fact that they'll have a device available to them to utilize for academic work. At home, we encourage parents and guardians to consider what they feel is an appropriate balance between screen time and interpersonal communication. We enlist your support in being certain that our students have a happy, healthy, well-rounded experience at home as well. Some suggestions that we offer, but we certainly do not require. We encourage regular check-ins with your son or daughter in order to discuss how they are using that device. What's on the device? Take a look at the apps and at the photos and the movies. Talk about how they're communicating with friends and peers on the device. Ask if there are any concerns that you have about their interactions with the device or with others while using that device. Perhaps you may want to institute some rules such as a device turn-in time, whether that be a certain time in the evening or just before bed. We know that many young people utilize the portability of their device to keep late hours and to communicate with friends electronically via the device. You may wish to collect the device at a certain time each night just to be certain that your child is getting a healthy night's sleep and that they're not distracted as a result of access to the tool. Another rule that's commonly suggested is that the device be used in common areas. Set boundaries for use of the device at home. This might mean that it can only be used in places where a parent or guardian can observe students using the device. Sometimes the simple act of monitoring can be a great deterrent for behavior that a parent or guardian may find unbecoming of their son or daughter. Monitoring the device regularly provides parents with a peace of mind by knowing what's happening on the device and how your son or daughter is using it. Finally, it's critical that we encourage parents to step up and step in as it relates to your son or daughter's use of the device. As we've stated, the device has become increasingly important to their academic pursuits. This does not mean, though, that the parent or the guardian should feel unable to place limitations or restrictions on the use of the devices. This is new territory for all of us. As the adults in these young people's lives, we need to make decisions that make sense for us, for them, that support our goals for them, for ourselves, for our families, and for our homes. If you have questions or concerns, feel free to contact school administrators as well as any member of the instructional technology team. Thanks so much for your time and attention. The introduction of these devices is a big change for everybody. Staff, students, and families have to work collectively to prepare our young people for the life that's ahead of them. We must work together to provide consistency, structure, opportunity, and support for our children. We're in this together.